What's wrong with education today? In the United States, all children have the right to free public school. This also indicates that children have the right to equal educational opportunities no matter what their race, ethnic background, or whether they are rich or poor. However, American school systems are continuing to see a rise of social class and racial segregation in its education system. There are a couple of major factors that I believe are contributing to the segregation. One is educational funding, and two is quality teachers. Funding is a vital issue among impoverished school districts. In low-income schools, students face overcrowding, unsanitary conditions, and understaffed buildings where even basic tools and textbooks might be missing. These schools tend to be located in areas with large proportions of minorities, high rates of poverty, and high taxation rates. Many school districts' funds are determined by the wealth of the local tax base. If a school is located in a poor area, there will be low tax revenue to fund the district. Jonathan Colzo discusses in Savage Inequalities that property tax are an unjust funding basis for schools because they fail to challenge the status quo of racial-based inequality. Even when states' funding is used to partially equalize the funding between districts, inequalities aren't erased. Point blank, equal funds for unequal needs is not equal. Addressing the problem has proven difficult, as illustrated by the Robin Hood reform. The state of Texas tried a distributing the wealth reform titled Robin Hood, which required wealthy school districts to share their locally generated property tax money. They spread the funds from property tax across school districts around the state. It supposedly benefited more than 90% of students. However, the state failed to contribute enough money to public education to meet increasingly severe standards, and it created a so-called unfair statewide property tax and was ruled as unconstitutional. Although the reform was not successful, distributing the wealth of property tax can still be an essential key to equality funding in American school districts. Quality teachers. To prepare American students for lives of high achievement, students need high-quality teachers. Research has found that every dollar spent on more highly trained teachers net greater increases in student achievement. Schools in low-income areas have higher need students, therefore need highly qualified teachers. However, as Sam Dillon reports, American schooling is that students in poor neighborhoods are frequently taught by low-paid rookie teachers. Tens of thousands of schools serve low-income students are being shortchanged because districts spend fewer state and local dollars on teachers' salaries in those schools than on salaries in schools serving higher-income students. Impoverished schools often are staffed by teachers with little to no experience and uncertified or alternatively certified teachers with high turnover rates. Linda Darlingham calls it a revolving door in her report, stating, unprepared teachers with little training leave soon after entering, creating greater instability in the schools. In benchmark tests, it makes one wonder if teachers are at fault or if the education system is setting teachers up for failure. While U.S. shovels out money for uncertified and alternatively certified teacher programs, highly achieving countries such as Finland and South Korea is spending money on high-quality graduate-level teacher programs. One point of broad agreement in education is that teachers matter greatly, and as the world takes notice of South Korea and Finland's continued education success, their teachers take praise. In countries where teaching profession is held highly culturally, education is a sought-after degree. McKinsey & Company's 2010 report that Finland and South Korea obtained their annual teacher intake from the top third of the distribution. However, in the U.S., only 23% of the new teachers overall and about 14% of those in high-poverty schools come from the top third of college graduates. Developing strong processes for selecting and training teachers, paying good starting compensation, and carefully managing the status of teacher profession help those countries attract top-level students to the teaching profession. Can you measure one's knowledge through tests? The United States seems to think so. Not only does the policymakers in our country impose high stakes requirements, they also like to measure our students up against international students. South Korea and Finland have always made their mark on the testing spectrum, although their education system highly differs. South Korea has longer school days than the U.S., and families spend heavily on private tutoring to prepare their children for college entrance examinations. Finland has been successful despite the fact that, unlike Asia, testing is de-emphasized and recess during the school day are longer. However, Finland is also a country with relatively few disadvantaged children, largely because of the nation's social welfare network. American students historically have not had high marks on international tests. Factors often cited include high rates of child poverty and population diversity. Researchers at the Economic Policy Institute found that much of the differences between U.S. scores and those of high-ranking nations is because the United States have higher proportions of disadvantaged students. On the contrary, Kimberly Heflin from Associated Press reports, students in Vietnam participated for the first time in 2012 and had much higher average scores in math and science than the United States. When Vietnam's poverty rates are significantly higher than the U.S., our poverty rate is about 22% in Vietnam. The poverty rate is about 79%. While it is very easy to quote statistics, but problematic to make generalizations based on that data, we obviously do not have all the answers. However, I do know that education isn't global testing competition, and that statistics can often be misleading. Charter schools. The documentary Waiting for Superman glorified charter schools. Diane Ravitch argues that the movie sent the message that American public school is a failed enterprise and that charter schools are the saving grace. However, a nationwide study of charter schools from Stanford University in 2013 shows that across the United States, the average charter school student showed improvements in reading and math equal to kids in traditional public schools. Not better, but simply the same. What is the path to improving U.S. schools? Educational funding. Although the reform Robin Hood was not successful, distributing the wealth of property tax can still be an essential key to equality funding in American school districts. It will take state policymakers analyzing the ways Robin Hood works versus didn't work, and finding new ways to make it better. Quality teachers. Students' achievement, college or career ready, is the school's number one priority. In order to get highly qualified teachers into impoverished schools, state and federal policy need to support higher wages and incentives. Instead of the state using resources to fund uncertified and alternatively certified teachers, they could use the money to raise teachers' wages in low-income schools. The federal government should create more scholarships like the President's Teaching Fellows Program and the revised version of the Teach Grant Program. This provides scholarships to potential teachers in high-needs fields and schools that serve students from low-income families. State policymakers should support funding for effectiveness training and mentoring programs for new teachers and teachers already working in high-need schools. Teachers of color. The state and districts should also support and encourage efforts to attract and place effective teachers of color. Students often do not look like the teachers. Students of color need teachers who provide professional models. Studies report that teachers of color have demonstrated success in increasing the academic achievement of students with similar backgrounds. Programs such as Call Me Mr. is a program aimed at teachers from from a broader, more diverse background to work in social economically disadvantaged and educationally at-risk communities. The program offers teachers tuition assistance through loan forgiveness programs, an academic support system, a cohort system of social and cultural support, and assistance with job placement, offering grant and incentives to teachers in high-need areas guaranteed successful quality teachers and student triumph. Community involvement. Many things outside of school contribute and counteract with students' education. There are several factors related with students' learning, such as social, economic, health, and environmental needs. In order for a student to reach his or her full academic potential, all factors must be met. To meet those factors, it would require school, family, and community joining together. There are several ways for schools and communities to unite, such as parental involvement, family learning centers, mentor programs in and out of school, and school-linked health services. Parental involvement. Through creating an open atmosphere, flexibility, and family learning centers, families would feel welcome and students would prosper academically and socially. STEAM reports in 2010 that parental involvement creates positive child-teacher relationships, positive attitude towards schools, and higher grade point averages. Creating steering communities or policies that represent families of all racial and social economic backgrounds would help the families feel that they had someone to relate to and in turn to with their child's needs. Flexibility would be addressed by having non-traditional meeting times after hours and weekends, which will help the families that cannot make it during typical work hours. Also, by offering families free education class would help because behavior is formed in part through observational and direct learning experiences. When children see parents strive for success through difficult economic times, it can be extremely motivating. DeBow, Boxer, and Huseman's 2009 report states parental educational level is an important predictor of children's educational and behavioral outcomes. Family learning centers address the need to get families involved, higher education, and student success. Mentoring. Bringing in quality mentors from the community can improve academic performance, school behavior, and attendance. A school-based mentor program, typically located at the schools and run by school personnel, can build an academic agenda, while a year-round community-based program can focus on more of the social and economic needs of the student. The two programs working hand in hand will ensure the student's development needs are met and socially supported. To create school-family community partnership, it will take school officials, superintendents, principals, etc., supporting and encouraging social workers and teachers to make the changes in communication and family participation. It will take support from state policymakers to help fund family learning centers and community mentor programs. It will also take the community to become involved to get their education wants and needs heard by state policymakers. In the end, in order for the schools to be successful in America, it is going to take more than one variable to fix a problem. Funding and education involvement are just two that can make an impeccable difference.